Narrative Theory Part 2. Though a literary scholar, Chapman works from a communication perspective to theorize meaning-making properties of narrative. He begins with notion that storytelling presupposes the encounter of a teller and listener, although the properties of this communication relationship are complex even when telling and listening takes place face to face. With a teller-listener relationship in mind, Chapman proposes a framework of talking about abstract properties or underlying of discursive personages as a way of talking about the abstract properties or underlying structure of narrative syntax. To make the student of visual communication to understand that there is a conceived equivalence between the visuals and the verbal narrative, to enlighten the student of visual communication about the need to include all forms of expression as narrative in the process of storytelling. As shown in figure 21.3, Chapman proposes that in the telling of a story, each party to the encounter entails three different personages, only one of which you should notice refers to the actual persons doing the telling and the listening. This means that discursive structure pertains to whether a story is told in person or through a text, even though when stories are told through a text, the near life author and the real life audience can only communicate through their implied counterparts. In either case, though the narrative form or compositional structure of the story is understood in terms of inscription of an implied teller and an implied audience as well as that of a narrator and a narratee. As figure 20.13 shows, storytelling through the medium of text makes it little easier to see that the author of a story is neither the author implied in the text nor the narrator, and similarly the audience is neither the audience implied in the text nor the narratee. Instead, these discursive personages refer to the perspective that a story takes toward the events and existence of its story world, and the evaluation it makes it of them. This framework of discursive personages is, in short, a way of talking about the abstract properties or composition structure of a narrative syntax. The framework is useful as an analytic tool to examine how a narrative rendering of reality, or in Fisher's terms, a narrative logic is implied through the syntax or way that a story is told. Furthermore, when casting these properties in pictorial terms for theorizing and understanding a pictorially rendered narrative of the framework is useful for theorizing and sense of the world. With reference to figure 21.3, let us turn then to the description of these discursive properties of the narrative form and a discussion of how they are exemplified pictorially. In the framework of discursive personages presented in figure 21.3, an implied teller is a story point of view. As Chapman put it, point of view is that the physical place or ideological situation or a practical life orientation to which the narrative events stand in relation. Its counterpart, an implied listener, is the perspective or vantage point from which one engages the narrative events. An image composed by an objective point of view, for example, places its narrative events in a reportive relationship to the camera or other composing instrument. At the same time, this compositional structure of spatial relations creates a reportive vantage point for engaging the events of an image. In distinguishing between the structures of implied author and narrator, Chapman emphasized that point of view does not mean expression, it only means the perspective in terms of which the expression is made. In other words, an objective point of view creates the terms of a reportive perspective as the frame within which one creates the terms of a reportive perspective as the frame within which one views the story elements. The same story elements might also be viewed in terms of participatory perspective, for example, if they were framed from a subjective point of view. Within this framework of discursive personages, then it is the expression itself that is characterized as narrator or narrating presence. Accordingly, a narrating presence is the particular way that the material of a story is organized, and its counterpart, a narratee or listening presence, is implied in the appraisal that one is meant to make of its particular compositional patterns. Though a narrating presence can take the form of a character in the story, it is not a person and certainly should not be confused with the author of a story. As Chapman stated, it should mean only the presence actually telling the story to an audience. In other words, a narrating presence comes from an audience's sense that it is being told something. Sometimes characterized as a story's narrating voice, it refers to the speech or other Overt means through which events and exigents are communicated to the audience. With an image, an audience's sense of being told something comes from the way the picture is made through a close-up scale from a high angle with a high contrast lighting in a narrow field of view, and so on. In other words, these elements of spatial organization are overt means through which the events and exigents or content of a pictorial story are expressed and communicated to audience. With reference to these terms, then we can turn to the discussion of pictorial narrative syntax by casting these properties in their pictorial terms, and we begin by generating a version of these terms that is more descriptive of image making. With reference to figure 21.3, we might first recognize that the process of visual authoring involves creators who images. They are painters, photographers, illustrators, graphic and multimedia designers, as well as film and video directors. Some image with a camera, others with pen and pencil, some with computer software programs, and still others with a brush. Their counterparts in the visual storytelling relationship are audiences who view it. When picturing is done with a camera, for example, the imager is a real person who directs what the camera will see, and the viewer is a real person who sees on a screen the results of image. In a visual discourse, then the notion of author is recast as implied imager, and the notion of reader is recast as viewer. In the same mode, the textual properties that inscribe a visual point of view are recast as implied imager and implied viewer. Finally, the textual properties that inscribe a sense of being told something and recast in terms of being shown something, thought of as showing presence of shower and showy positions of a virtually composed discourse. The terms of a visual narrative syntax can be identified then as this inscription of a pictorial point of view, implied imager, along with a pictorial vantage point from which to view the image story world, as well as organization of picturing elements, shower, within an implication of the way this organization is meant to be seen, showy. With the analytic framework cast in visual terms, we turn to a discussion of how narrative rendering of reality occurs in pictorial terms. The sequence of images from a political campaign commercial shown in figure 21.4 will be useful to illustrate the meaning making properties of a picture's storytelling form. Narrating I, shower to showy. A story to be a story has to be told. Although the content of a story is necessary, it is its discursive structures of telling that interest narrative theories, and a syntactically inscribed narrator-narrative relationship is at the heart of this discourse. In a pictorial story structure, the notion of this narrative presence is found the way that images and sequence of images are composed by an imaginary shower for an imaginary showy. In other words, a narrating I leaves its trace in an image's organization of space and time, shower, and in the meaning making of these organizing qualities, showy. This relationship is at the heart of the discourse because these inscriptions form the fundamental sign meaning relationship. A narrating presence is inscribed then by such meaning making elements of spatial organization as the field of view, scale, level of view, angle, depth of perspective and contrast of view, light and shadow, as well as temporal elements of motion, movement within a frame and between frames in the terms used by Phi. These pictorial inscriptions make up the flow of the significant sites of discourse. Syntax of an image. The syntax, we remember, directs our sense making work. Inward meanings implied in the way that material is formed. Drawing on in the contextual media aesthetics, we can identify an image narrating presence by a close reading of its syntax of spatial and temporal elements. Because objects in these screens are within touching distance, these compositions of space show are literally inscribed for spatially relationships of closeness. Furthermore, because touching distance are experienced perceptually as personal and intimate, the spatial relationships in these images are potentially meant to be seen as inscribed internalness or intimacy. Fundamentally, a narrating I is the means by which space and time are organized. In addition, though, the narrating I has to do this organizing work from some position in space and time. For example, it might be pictorially telling the tale as participant within the world of the story or as an omniscient observer. As an omniscient observer, the narrating I organizes what it shows to an imaginary seer as if both are outside of the pictorial story and looking it on it. In this kind of structure, the presence of a shower in the organization of an image remains hidden. The narrating I literally reports what it shows, implying that it to be seen metaphorically as objectiveness. In this discursive structure of pictorial direct, an imaginary shower addresses an imaginary seer as if the two of them are involved rather than observing. a pictorial event. The shower literally identifies its participation in the showing with the implication that it be seen metaphorically as subjectiveness. To summarize, theorizing the narrative discursive syntax of an image includes these characteristics of pictorially structured narrating presence and to what we turn next, a pictorially composed point of view. Pictorial point of view, implied imager and implied viewer. In the telling, a story also has to be told from a particular point of view. Although the spatial relations organized by a narrating eye creates a pictorial story world, the spatial relations organized by a pictorial point of view create a position for viewing it. These spatial relations might be composed literally from an observing position, for example, with an implications that you be seen metaphorically as looking at a picture world, or they might be composed literally from an involving or a participatory position, implying that the view be seen metaphorically as looking into or being in a pictured world. These spatial relations inscribe the textual positions of an implied imager and an implied viewer in the discursive syntax of a pictorial narrative. We find all three variations of an implied imager and implied viewer interaction illustrated in the image structures of the first 8 screens of figure 21.4. The first 3 screens are composed from an observing point of view, as if one were looking at scene somewhat omnisciently from outside. In screen 4, however, the spatial relations created prominent foreground object suggests a point of view that is more involved in the events of the pictured world, as if seeing perhaps over the shoulder, along with an imager and looking into rather than just at the way things are organized. Finally, in screens 5 to 8, the spatial relations of almost perfect symmetry suggest a participating point of view, as if in being addressed one were part of being in this pictorial reality. In the short span of just 8 screens, these images shift the point of view from a position to looking in and to being in this story world. In summary, then the discussion of a narrating eye and a pictorial point of view shows the utility of narrative theory to theorize a pictorial narrative syntax. Discursive structures of shower to showee create a pictorial story world, and those of implied imager to implied viewer structure various subject positions for viewing it. These pictorial structures of spatial relations, such as eye level, close up from an observational point of view, are structures of syntax. They are into compositional structures that give form to the objects of an image, and that when analyzed reveal how their arrangements create meanings according to the logic of a beginning, middle and an end. The notion of pictorial syntax is also useful for an understanding the role of pictorial conventions in creating the specific experiences associated with various genres of storytelling. Pictorial narrative syntax, pictorial conventions of story genres. Narrative scholars find an answer to the question about why we need and enjoy stories in the notion of narrative rationality. Narrative, it seems, is a powerful sense-making mode. If this explains why we need stories, however, it does not explain why we seem to need the same stories over and over again. Children, for example, love to have the same story told over and over, and they often insist that it be told exactly the same way each time. In an evening of television viewing, we are also likely to watch and enjoy the same story told over and over if we indulge in more than one situation comedy or catch more than one news program. Certainly, a week's worth of viewing will find many variations on the theme of the crime story. We watch it from the perspective of the cops and from the perspective of the attorneys, from the perspective of the individual criminals and the perspective of the international syndicates. Though the story stuff of these examples is not the same like the children's book that is read over and over again, they have a similar story form that is both recognizable and distinct from that of situation comedy or a news narrative. They are specific generic structures that are detachable from the narrative stuff of a story. Each of these forms follows distinct transformational structure of crisis and resolution of that we come to recognize as the kind of story it tells, or more significantly the kind of argument it makes about the nature of the world. At a very general level, for example, the transformational structure of comedy affirms an idealistic point of view about the universe, whereas the transformational structure of tragedy affirms a realistic perspective, the melodrama an optimistic point of view, and irony a pessimistic one. Experiencing one of these story structures over and over again is one way of engaging and reaffirming the values asserted through this transformational form. Situational comedies give us the opportunity to know the world as an idealistic place. For example, whereas with the melodramatic structures of news narrative, we may a more optimistic sense of things, we usually refer to these structural sense making forms as genres of storytelling. By distinguishing between genres, we appreciate that the shape of a sense making structure is a fundamental carrier of the sense that the structure makes. Scholars interested in how visual conventions carry this sense of meaning look for distinctive recurring or conventional patterns of visual composition within a generic form. In a close analysis of this visual text of soap opera narrative, for example, Barbatis and Guy identified a number of compositional conventions of the visual narrative, and in analyzing their aesthetic properties found that they created an experiential sense of reportiveness and realness associated with soap operas and other generic conventions. Studies such as investigate narrative structure as a fundamental carrier of cultural meaning answer the question of why we need the same stories over and over by demonstrating how narrative sense making structures are very powerful always of asserting the basic ideology of a culture. Narrative analysis, story as object of study. This lesson has begun with a discussion of narrative as a particular way of structured thought, which Fisher termed narrative logic. Much of what we have considered thus far has concerned theorizing about what narrative is as well as how we can apply this theorizing to pictorial expressions. Hopefully, we answered the theoretical question of whether or not there is such a thing as visual narrative with a resounding yes. That being the case, we can employ the method of narrative analysis to interpret the ways in which visual materials use a narrative way of structured thought to make sense of the world. Because we make our way in the world by structuring our experiences into stories, narrative structures are deeply revealing of how thinking, what we value and why we act, whether in the form of anecdotes, case studies, dialogue, role play, parables and fables, a journal, a joke, a news item or a novel. Storytelling behavior provides an entry to the individual subjectivity and identity as well as social and institutional sense making. Narrative analysis is the methodology used for studying the narrative logic of this human storytelling behavior. Not surprisingly, narrative analysis is found across a broad interdisciplinary spectrum of interpretive research, including formal literary studies in the humanities, personal narrative in contemporary anthropology and feminist studies, news, advertising and entertainment in mass media and cultural studies, as well as societal level analysis of public service campaigns, public policy making and institutional processes in a political and social studies. Although a government report or a medical interview might not seem to have much in common with a work of fiction or even a documentary, each has a narrative logic of sense making embedded in plot structure. Each and all of these sense making structures has to do with how protagonists interpret things, and it is for this that we engage in narrative analysis. As Burner stated, Alasutari explained, for example, how the ideological undercurrents of policy and legislation can be identified in government committee reports by analyzing their narrative logic, how they define the present situation, how they describe the inherent problems, then present possible solutions, and how they justify the rationale of the solutions. Although less formally defined than a television drama or a novel, these government committee reports are so similar to them in exhibiting a causal sequence or plot structure of problem, complication, crisis and resolution. And as with formal literary works, the structure is itself infused with a meaning because it is one of any number of ways the story could be told, and as such can be appreciated as an ideologically located way of making sense of the world. The embedded stories of personal narrative which are concerned with lives and lived experiences presently at another different level of formality because they are generated in conversation. Still, these stories have a narrative logic or plot line in the way that they tell what happened, where and when it happened, who did it, how and why. In addition, even though less formally defined, personal narrative plot structures allow comparison and interpretation across a number of cases. Ginsberg generalized, for example, about the place of reproductive experiences in the life stories of contrasting groups of women. Studying the life stories generated with women activists, she has found that one difference between the pro-life and the pro-choice of groups was in the structure of their narratives, including both the substance of the turning points and the way they were sequenced. Narrative analysis adapts to this wide variety of narrative material because it emphasizes the role of form conveying meaning. This allows narrative structures to be studied from a broad range of analytic perspectives. Although it is beyond the scope of the lesson to describe any detail A brief overview is offered to demonstrate the diversity of approaches that are available for studying visual narrative. Props typology of narrative functions has been useful in classification and cultural interpretation of formal literary texts. Wright adopted in his study of Westerners, for example, showing how variations in plot structure relate to changing ways of dealing with the tension between the individual and society in American culture. Other popular approaches for analyzing formal text as well as discourse of personal narrative include Van Dijk's rules of discourse analysis for summarizing a story, typology of structural elements, Burke's dramatistic pentad, and Gee's structure of poetic devices. Others who focus on personal narrative as a form of identity formation use typologies that link social and personal identity with such generic structures as comedy and romance. None of these typologies was developed within the notion of an independently meaningful pictorial narrative plot structure in mind. However, their usefulness to visual communication theory depends on finding equivalencies for pictorial structures in the concepts and terms that have been developed from a theoretical understanding of language structure. As an example, Van Dijk's rules for summarizing the discursive structure of a story deal with propositional structures. For visual communication scholars, the first challenge in adopting an analytic structure such as this is theorizing pictorial propositional structures in a way that does not arbitrarily impose verbal constructs on them. Similarly, analysis using Labau's method involves parsing language utterances and their organizing them according to their narrative function. Applying this approach with pictorial material would involve parsing the images of visual structure and then determining their structural functions that Labau describes as abstract orientation, complication, evaluation, resolution, and coda. Using Burke's dramatistic approach to analyze a visual narrative structure dictates identifying a pictorial grammar of act. What was done, where or whether it was done, who did it, how was it done, and why was it done. Although Van Dijk, Labau, and Burke all work the text-based written language structure, Gee's approach focuses on the oral structures of how a story is told. Taking a similar poetic structural approach to analyzing visual narrative would include theorizing such poetic features of pictorial expression as framing metaphors, stanzas, and summarizing couplets. Any of these approaches provides a useful analytical tool for understanding how the pictorial syntax of a photograph, a film, or a website, or any of the images was crafted in our personal narratives organizers' thought. Theorizing visual narrative, in short, we pose questions about pictorial storytelling that narrative scholars since the time of Aristotle have asked for. What is a pictorial? Why do we need pictorial stories? Why do we need the same pictorial stories over and over? And finally, why is our need for more pictorial stories never satisfied? Do they in the end give a narrative form to a logically insolvable problem? If this is the case, as narrative theorists assert, then the issue for visual narrative and especially the ambiguously transparent mediation of film and television narrative is compelling. The challenge is to theorize, study, and create visual narrative in ways that we appreciate its sense-making function as a way to better understand disordered, raw experience as a powerful way of constituting reality and not a way of merely recording it. The notion of pictorial narrative as a way of structuring thought provides a useful tool for meeting that challenge.